The grand arena of Velcora hummed with anticipation as Instructor Velthar surveyed the graduating class of combat cubs. His four eyes narrowed in disbelief at the assessment scores displayed on his neural interface. Impossible. The Shikari cubs from Compound 7 had achieved marks that surpassed even the elite bloodlines. "Bring them forward," he commanded, his mandibles clicking with barely concealed irritation. The line of young Shikari warriors stepped onto the training platform, their chitinous armor gleaming under the arena's harsh lights. They moved with a precision that seemed unnatural for cubs barely past their molt season. Velthar had trained thousands of warriors across 3 decades. He knew excellence when he saw it, and this was something else entirely. "Combat formation Epsilon 9, he barked. The cubs didn't hesitate. They flowed into position like water finding its level, each movement economical and purposeful. Sriku Sharpstep, the smallest of the group, anchored the defensive line with movements that belonged to a warrior 3 times his age. Velthar's confusion deepened into suspicion. "Who trained you?" he demanded, his translator rendering the question in the sharp, clicking cadence of formal Shikari. Sriku didn't speak. Instead, his primary limb extended toward the observation deck, where a lone figure stood among the crowd of proud parents and clan leaders. A human. The creature was unremarkable by galactic standards. Bipedal, soft-skinned, lacking any natural armor or weapons. Ava Cinderhall stood with her arms crossed, her expression unreadable. Velthar felt his bile sacs churn. Humans were merchants, diplomats, scientists. They weren't warriors. Their homeworld had only joined the Galactic Assembly 40 cycles ago, and they'd contributed nothing to military doctrine. "Explain," Velthar said, his voice dropping to a dangerous register. Sriku's mandibles spread in what passed for a Shikari smile. "Instructor Cinderhall taught us everything, sir." The arena fell silent. Even the other instructors stopped their evaluations to watch. A human training Shikari warriors. The Shikari, whose people had conquered 17 systems through martial prowess alone. It was absurd. Velthar activated his comm. "Cinderhall, report to the platform, now." Ava descended the stairs with an unhurried gait that somehow conveyed absolute confidence. She stepped onto the platform, and Velthar was struck by how small she seemed next to the towering Shikari forms. Yet the cubs tracked her movement with an attention they'd never shown him. "You trained these cubs?" Velthar demanded. "I did," Ava replied, her voice steady. "Impossible. You lack the physical capabilities, the cultural understanding, the results speak for themselves, Instructor." Ava gestured to the assessment board, where Compound 7's scores glowed in the top percentile. "Unless you believe your testing protocols are flawed?" A challenge, direct and bold. Velthar's respect for the human increased marginally, even as his anger grew. "Demonstrate," he said finally. "Show me what you taught them." Ava turned to Sriku. "Remember what I told you about fear?" "It's just information," Sriku replied immediately. "Data to be processed, not a chain to bind us." "And pain?" "A teacher, not an enemy." Ava nodded. "Combat Scenario Omega. Full contact. Begin." What happened next would be discussed in Shikari warrior lodges for years to come. The cubs moved like a single organism, exploiting weaknesses in Velthar's veteran demonstration team that shouldn't have been visible to warriors so young. They didn't fight with the traditional Shikari emphasis on overwhelming force. Instead, they flowed, adapted, redirected. Sriku led a flanking maneuver that forced 2 larger warriors into compromising positions. When one attempted a crushing overhead strike, the young Shikari didn't block. He moved inside the attack's arc, using momentum and leverage to send his opponent tumbling. Velthar called a halt before any serious injuries occurred. His demonstration team stood panting, 3 of them yielding postures while the cubs remained ready, barely winded. "How?" Velthar's voice cracked through his translator. "Our people have refined combat doctrine for 10,000 years. What could you possibly teach them?" Ava's expression softened slightly. "I taught them that strength isn't just physical, that the universe doesn't care about tradition when you're fighting for survival. That adaptation matters more than heritage." She paused. "I taught them human philosophy, that when you're weaker than everything else in the galaxy, you learn to be smarter, faster, and more ruthless than anyone expects. Humans have no warrior tradition, Velthar protested. We have something better, Ava said quietly. We have survival instinct refined by a homeworld that tried to kill us for 3 million years. Predators, parasites, weather extremes, resource scarcity. Earth didn't make us strong, Instructor. It made us adaptive, and adaptation beats strength every single time in a long enough timeline. She walked among the cubs, placing a gentle hand on Sriku's shoulder guard. These cubs already had the strength and courage. I just taught them to think like prey animals who became apex predators, to see every disadvantage as an opportunity, to never fight fair when survival is on the line. Velthar studied the human with new appreciation. Her people had been dismissed as soft, as too accommodating, too willing to compromise. But looking at the results she'd produced, he began to understand. Humans hadn't survived by being the strongest. They'd survived by being the most dangerously creative. The Galactic Council will want to know about this, he said finally. Ava smiled then, and there was something predatory in it. I'm counting on it. Instructor, I've got 300 more compounds requesting my training methods. Turns out everyone wants to learn from the species that came from a death world and decided the galaxy looked like a nice place to make friends. Sriku clicked his mandibles in approval. She also taught us humor, sir. Apparently it's a psychological weapon. Velthar looked between the human and her students. The galaxy was changing, he realized. The old certainties were crumbling, and perhaps that wasn't such a terrible thing. Dismissed, he said quietly. As the cubs filed out in perfect formation, he added, Cinder Hall, my office. Tomorrow, I want to learn. Ava's smile widened. I thought you'd never ask.